Okay, this video is what about high-fat veganism? And I really say there's two main groups. Well, there's a couple different groups of vegans. There's the philosophic vegans, and those are the persons who are most interested in animal rights and don't want to eat anything from an animal for the sake of, not any type of cruelty to the animal. And a lot of them are not healthy at all. And they especially will eat lots of these high-fat vegan foods. A lot of, fat foods taste good. But there's also a component of the theoretically health vegans where some will say, oh, you need to eat all these fats. You need flaxseed, you need omega-3 supplements from algae, olive oil's okay, soybeans are good, flax seeds are good, avocados good, nuts are good. I disagree with that. Okay, just so you know, for what it's worth, my study of the literature, I recommend keeping your dietary fat very low. I believe that gives you better oxygenation of your tissues. You avoid less likely to have problems with lipid peroxidation. There's potential issues with omega-3 supplements, even from algae. Besides the fat making you get fat, become obese, elevation of your cholesterol. And I really worry about that lipid peroxidation. I think that's an under-recognized problem. I have a whole lecture on oxidative stress. You just don't need this stuff, all day long. It's nonstop. Any hospital in America, all you will see is diabetic, fat, hypertensive people. That's nonstop. All the demented patients I see, like 95% of them are either diabetic, hypertensive, or both. And that same stuff, diabetes, hypertension, contributes to myocardial infarctions, increases cancer risk. So the point is, there's nobody sick or dying from deficiency of fats. I've never seen a single case in my life of essential fatty acid deficiency. I've never seen one, not one. I've never seen any type of problem with this stuff. So why all this excitement and energy focused on something that doesn't matter? Get your good fats. That's just, to me, a slogan to get you to eat, Mediterranean diet and make yourself fat and sick. Let's see, what else? Yeah, olive oil is not a health food. Canola oil is not a health food. None of those things are. And I'm not a fan of soy either. I think it's very high in fat. I would avoid it. Plus flax seeds, they're both very high in estrogenic chemicals. I want to avoid estrogenic chemicals. And now I know there's a whole debate. Well, what about the good estrogen receptor, the bad estrogen receptor? My reading of the literature, it was activating, soy was activating both the so-called good and the so-called bad receptor, and so I'm not a fan of it. Avocados normally only in season for a couple of weeks in nature. They're not a good thing to be eating all around the clock. Nuts, they're just too fat, and once you start, it's hard to stop eating them. I'm not a fan of nuts. I mean, having a teaspoon at the holiday, a tablespoon at the holiday, I think that's might be okay if you don't have any history of coronary artery disease, but you don't need them. You can get selenium from other locations. Okay, and you get enough of these omega-3s from just eating plant foods. What I worry about, too, is that people think, oh, I need them for my brain. But remember, you can remember stuff from your childhood, and that's because you got neurons that have not turned over since you were a child. The point being is we don't need that much omega-3s, EPA and DHA, and we make them from the precursor, alpha-linolenic acid, ALA. So it's really a minute amount, and it's a non-issue. I think people are overdosing on EPA and DHA by taking supplements of them, is my interpretation of the literature. I think they increase the risk of prostate cancer. I personally would not take any of that stuff. What else I think is happening, there's big money in corporations, okay? And they a lot of times shape public behavior. And I think, there's a lot of farmland right now that's being used to feed cattle. And I think there's a lot of rich corporations, rich persons, they would like to own that land themselves. They could build something on it. They could, have a big home on that property. Why waste it on cattle? So what I'm trying to say is there's this big movement to push the public towards eating more plant foods. But I think what I'm seeing is the big money is still promoting the public to eat high-fat plant foods. And I personally think that's a mistake for health. And I think these philosophic vegans who just want to, do it for the sake of the animals but eat a lot of high-fat plant foods, they're going to be fat and sick and diabetic and hypertensive and get all these problems, coronary artery disease, dementia, and so they're going to spend all their life savings in retirement on health problems, go bankrupt and die prematurely. So what I'm saying is making the switch from animal foods to plant foods is a big positive step towards better health. But in my opinion, from studying it, I think there's lots of problems with fat. Just like Pritikin said, fat is bad. You really don't want to be eating all this fat. In other lectures I've gone into all the detail of why, but I'm still surprised that all these people, they're so interested in their good fats. It's a non-issue. Be afraid of fat. I'm afraid of fat. I want to minimize it. I don't see any benefit to it. I don't even think there's any good fats except the fiber in your colon that's converted to it. You only have such a small need of omega-3s. You get enough. Omega-6s, you get enough just from eating plant foods. That's what we're designed to eat. So anyways, I personally think high-fat veganism is not the way to go.